Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Christie Ellis. I am with Keller Williams Integrity First, and I get to be here again with Bill Paden, Direct Mortgage Loans Lender, and Patrick McQueen from Medalist Legal, our favorite attorney who gets to chime in on fun things. And today we started talking about properties up north, right? Because all three of us own in different to similar locations, right? We all have higher elevations. It's in places that are cooler. But I wanted to chat about all these from Prescott all the way out to Pinetop, what we're seeing, because I know from our perspective as real estate agents, we're having challenges closing deals because of insurance, people getting dropped up there. We're having, although surprisingly, there is quite a bit of activity earlier this year than there was the past couple of years. And I'm not sure if that has to do with the fact that it's already been 100 degrees down here in the valley. So, not sure about that, but I think so.
I think that's a big factor is
Mm.
the heat, especially up in the White Mountains, Shoalo area, even Payson. It's not necessarily a destination.
Yeah,
People fly in, they go to Flagstaff, go to the Grand Canyon, but that people that know about Shoalo and the White Mountains are valley people. And when it's
yeah,
hot, they want to get the heck out of Dodge.
yeah,
Um,
that's
but you
true.
bring up a
And
great point with that, with the insurance. That insurance piece is huge because, especially if there's a fire going on in the general
mhm.
area, it's gonna be tough to get it actually insured at that moment until the fire's under control. So
Oh, that's
we
right. That's a good point.
we run into that. I always say with anybody, like when you and I do deals up in the White Mountains, I always make sure get your quotes and insurance within the first 5 to 10 days, just
Yeah.
to make sure that we can have a dialed in payment for you. Because yeah, that can range big time, especially if you're outside the city limits.
Yeah, and there's all these programs up there, and Patrick, I'm not sure if you've heard of these like Firewise, ones that will help. Now, I've spoken to a couple of underwriters as well, because even being here in Ahwatukee, because I'm right next to South Mountain and there was like two little fires that sparked, that's even causing some challenges when it comes to insurance. Up there, I know I didn't get renewed or just renewed. Just renewed, right? You don't get re-renewed, you just get renewed. I didn't get renewed from one of my properties. That's in May. Fortunately, because we know so many people in this business, I was able to find someone, well, actually a couple people who can potentially quote from me up there. But closing properties up there, as an agent, you have to be really aware of what's going to potentially happen if you don't, like you said, take care of things from the beginning. And I want to talk about agents up in those parts of town too, because just because you can drive up there doesn't mean you should be selling houses up there. Am I right, Pat?
If you want to keep me busy, then you would do it. What you're getting at is scope of representation, area of expertise kind of thing. Just because you have a real estate license doesn't mean you should be selling homes in areas that you don't quite understand. The same goes for me. I practice primarily in the areas of real estate law and I stay in my own lane. I could theoretically go and handle an employment matter. I could theoretically go and handle a patent matter. But guess what? I'm going to bumble through that thing, probably make it worse. And so it's the same concept. So you, as a real estate licensee, have the ability to go wherever you want within the state that you're licensed. But that, again, doesn't mean you should, because if your area of expertise is high-end luxury homes in North Scottsdale, then poking around in some of the outlying areas, up north areas, White Mountain areas, it's not a good idea.
No, because you don't know what you don't know. When I went up there, so I bought my own property up there before. Well, I can't say before I started helping someone. I did help somebody beforehand, but I gave him a heads up. I'm like, I know nothing. But this person was a home inspector. So at least they understood that they would be able to see a lot of the things that they needed to know about. And I got really excited about that whole process and I learned a ton during it. And for example, I had to join an MLS up there. Well, you don't have to, but it's best you do. So I went up there, took classes, joined the board, and I learned a ton, right? Because you are required once you join a board up there to have access to their MLS. But as a whole, the membership up there is 800 members, and half of them are secondary memberships like myself. So only about 400 primary members up in the White Mountains. We also have access now to the Flagstaff MLS through the White Mountains, to Sedona, to Payson, but in our Valley MLS, we do have access to Sedona. Arizona's looking to try and go to this one state MLS, which is fantastic because we could all see all different things, but we still can't practice. Like I would never do Flagstaff. I'm not doing it. I don't know enough.
I'll give you a prime example. I'm dealing with some real estate agents in Gila County, which is a northeastern county in Arizona. And most of them didn't know about the practice changes that happened last August with respect to the buyer broker agreements, et cetera. They weren't getting them. So there is a huge difference in what happens in a lot of these areas. And so if you're not locally tied in, obviously those guys should have known about it, and that's shame on them for not. But it just goes to show you that there are such distinct ways in which things are done in certain areas versus what we're typically used to in the bigger cities.
This is true, because I'm also licensed in South Carolina, and they don't necessarily follow the contract law, but how they do business typically, right? That was something I learned, and I was like, I don't know how. And then I felt completely out of my realm. I was buying my own house, but it was really random and weird. So I realized, thank goodness I was practicing on myself, because I was not doing myself justice in a good job at all. I was terrible.
Well, the one thing we have going for us is that the state contract is across the whole state, right? Through AR.
Yes.
And in different states, you get different versions, you get different, being licensed in different states, I see a different version of the contract every time I receive it. But I think when you're selling, just like Patrick said, you're staying in your swim lane, stay in what you're good at. One benefit that you have, especially Christie, you up in the White Mountains, that you have a place up there, you live up there, you know the area, right? That's important when you're taking buyers around. Just like Patrick said, stumbling around it isn't going to be the best for the client.
No, you have to learn. You have to take the time to learn. And it's not to say everyone starts new somewhere at some point, even down here, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but my suggestion would be you have to learn a lot before you start taking on those clients. Before you start and you have to know who's your best resource and connection. If you don't know it, who can you pair up with at a particular time and essentially share compensation with them as an agent. Find out ways that you can work together on a deal so you learn. But
or just get a referral fee and do it for a referral fee, which is the nice part of being in your business, is that I don't have to go and do this, but I can still be a part of the transaction and be paid something here without having to expose myself to quite a lot of potential liability.
That's brilliant. You actually can do that. Yes, we do have that opportunity. Now, Bill, let me ask you, so White Mountains, Payson, Flagstaff, Prescott, Happy Jack, all those are very commonly second home buyers, right? Talk about how does the rates look for a second home buyer, primary buyer, investment buyer? What does that look like?
Yeah, primary is going to give you the best rate, right? That's going to be the best interest rate out there, the primary purchase, and allows you to put as low as 3.5% down, depending on if you're a first-time home buyer or not. Second home, you still can put just 10% down, but the rates are closer to the investment property interest rate. So it's just a matter of making sure that it makes sense for you when you're putting those together. And then investment property, if it's a purely investment property, minimum 15%, but strongly recommend 20 to 25 to get that payment lower. The mortgage insurance is brutal when you put 15% down. But those rates are, since Fannie and Freddie are trying to limit the amount of second homes in their portfolios, they've increased those rates. A couple of years ago, second home interest rates used to be the same as primary for the most part.
Those were such good old days, and especially when they're in the threes.
Yeah, no, those are amazing.
Oh,
don't worry. But yeah, so that's the main difference. You still second home, you can still put just 10% down, which is a great thing for a lot of clients as well, instead of doing that full 20%.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm starting to see more activity up there. Like I said, I sold a house up there in January, which was weird. Not uncommon, but I'm sorry, not unheard of, but not common. You know, because you think it's going to be snow. We had a very dry winter up there, so.
Oh, very
There was
dry.
a mountain lion who walked down. Yeah, I had a mountain lion walk down my driveway, looking for some water. So it's cool wildlife. Anything you two would like to add about practicing outside of scope of work, or up in the White Mountains, or not even the White Mountains, I'm sorry, anywhere up north? We can talk about golf, because a lot of people will do this whole secondary home thing because of their golfing privileges. I know several people who have these, right? Like golf memberships. And actually, that's an interesting point. When you work with someone who knows the areas, different HOAs require different things in these secondary markets, especially if there's golf communities. So knowing what those requirements are and what benefits you get, just because you may own a house in a neighborhood where there is a golf course, doesn't necessarily mean you get full golf privileges. You have to do certain things. Or Pat, is some of them still lifetime once you buy in or is that less common now?
It's gone. If you don't want it, it's gone.
Okay, because there were
Yeah.
some communities where if you started the buy-in as a golf member, you were not allowed to ever let it go anytime in your life ever. You had to
Even
die.
after you sold your home.
You sold well, even then, and you weren't even. It wasn't even a guarantee you could get rid of the golf privileges at that point
That's
either. So
That's exactly right. And speaking of golf privileges, Bill should probably have none. Just saying. But no, it is imperative that if you are buying in a golf community, that you read and understand the documents it's a stack of documents this thick that you're going to need to read and understand. Because can they raise the dues on me? Do I have to continue this obligation after I sell my house? What is the buy-in? What does that cover? How many days a week can I play? All that
and if
stuff.
I'm going to rent it out, am I allowed to let my guests use it? Because
You're
I know
right.
what we are. You have to pay like $275 for the first person, then $75 for each additional person if you want to let them play on your privilege, and that's only for once a month. That can happen. So you got to be careful if you're thinking you're gonna cash flow your property because you can give them these golf privileges. That may not be a scenario that can actually
Right.
work. Because I think
And-
now, if you want to buy that package or something up in Torreon, it's like almost $100,000. If you want to buy the package where you could give it away or something, I can't even be 100% sure. I don't remember. They just did.
Well,
different things
and
about
just
it.
know that in some of these communities, there are major rental restrictions. And
That's
so if
true,
you're not a local agent or working with a local agent or someone who's got the experience up there, you might be stepping into some sort of violation there, because a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll use the cabin during the winter months when there's snow, or during the summer months when it's really nice, and then the remainder they'll rent on a VRBO kind of platform. And there's some communities up there that absolutely prohibit that 3-month minimum, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hugely important to talk to somebody who knows about those communities.
Yeah, I just sold one that had 0 rentals allowed, except for an annual one.
Yeah.
It was a primary home or typical resident rental community. Thank you both for your time today. Appreciate it. It's always so enlightening to chat with you too. If you need any of us, please always feel free to reach out. I'm going to continue to put our contact information in the comment section. So always feel free to reach out and ask any questions. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks.